So hello everyone. Hello. Okay, good morning to everyone. Yesterday on WhatsApp, I shared a file with you. So we talked about what is a process, and we said a process is nothing but a program in execution. And just a minute, let me set the page properly. Okay. So a process is nothing but a program in execution. So an operating system needs to uh, prepare the program for execution. And for that, it needs to create its own internal data structures and keep information about the process in that in this table. So one of the table that it is going to create would be process table. So every program that is brought for execution, digital ID is a process number is associated with it. Apart from that, operating system will also keep information about owner of the process, the parent process, any child processes which have been created by this process, and the resources which have been allocated to this process, plus the permissions that this process has, whether it can access a resource or it cannot access a resource, and if it can access a resource, whether it can access the resource in read mode, write mode, or both, or can it allocate this resource to another process, etc. So it will keep some information about that. Apart from that, it will also keep the state of the process, whether the process is sleeping, whether the process is zombie, whether the process is running, whether the process is ready to run. So it will also keep track of the process state and accordingly move it from one queue to another queue. As I said, that for every input output device, there will be a queue, plus there will be a queue for process to be scheduled on CPU, queue for the processes that have been blocked or the processes that have been swapped, and the processes that are sleeping on some semaphore or some event, processes waiting for some signal to be received from another process, etc. So it will be maintaining different queues. It will be managing different queues on behalf of the resources also. So the main problem is that as long as processes are completely independent, they are not sharing any resource or any data, there is no problem. But if the processes are sharing data, it can lead to race conditions. So we'll be discussing about the solution to this resource sharing. You have done this in your previous semester, that is concurrent programming, but we'll be repeating it again for sake of completeness of this program, and we might be looking at it from operating system perspective. So let's look at this scenario in which we have got two processes. One is withdrawing amount from an account, and another is depositing depositing money into another account. So let's say we have net banking. So it is quite possible that if the account is shared by two or more people, so one person might be trying to deposit some money into the account, whereas the other person might be trying to withdraw money from the account. And it is quite possible that both these requests are received at the server at the same time. So let's say what happens when the amount has to be withdrawn. So naturally, the process which is responsible for ensuring that balance amount is correct after withdrawal will have to read the balance, then add the amount to be withdrawn, subtract amount to be withdrawn from the balance, and then update the balance. Similarly, in case of deposit, again, the process is supposed to read the balance and then add the amount to be deposited to the balance and update balance. Let me correct this. There is some. So it will not be add, it will be subtract. Okay. So naturally, both the processes are independently executing. So, and this is deposit amount. Okay. So now, because both the so balance is naturally a common shared variable between these two processes. So balance is ultimately stored at a memory location. So the first process that need to withdraw will read this value into a CPU register, then read the value of W amount to be withdrawn, subtract the two, and then update the balance again. Similarly, the deposit process would do the same. So, so now what could happen? Because both the processes are running on the same server, so one of the process can be scheduled at a time. So context switch can take place before the first process is completed. So it is quite possible that the first process is running, which is associated with the withdrawal of the amount, and the second process gets scheduled in between. So if the context switch takes place, so it could be one of the execution instance. So process one, so let's say initially the balance is equal to 0 and amount to be withdrawn is 200 and amount to be deposited is 300. So it is quite possible that W1 statement has been executed, W2 statement has been executed, but then the context switch occurs. Now, because the context switch has occurred, so the amount balance was 1000 and 200 has been subtracted from this, but this particular value 800 is in the CPU register and it has not been written back to the common shared memory where balance is stored. Meanwhile, deposit process gets executed and let's say it gets completed. So if it gets completed, then 300 rupees have been deposited. So the balance on the memory would be 1300. But when process one, that withdrawal process gets executed, the balance is updated to 800, which is incorrect. So one of the possible values would be 800. So why it happened? Because withdrawal process updates afterwards. Two deposit processes have updated, but after that the withdrawal process gets executed. So the amount is 800 instead of 1100. Second scenario could be that deposit process gets executed, begins to execute, but before it could complete, withdrawal process gets scheduled. So in this case, the balance would be 1300. Two, the balance should have been 1100. So the two possible values are 800 and 1300. And of course, the third possible value would be 1100, in which either deposit process gets executed first and then withdrawal process gets executed, or other way around. So in this case, depending upon the order in which the processes get scheduled, the answer could be 800, 1300, or 1100. And we know that two of the answers are incorrect, and the desired answer is 1100. Now, because we are talking about financial transactions, which are taking, so many transactions are taking place, so this situation can occur quite frequently, and we do not want that. Bank wouldn't like to lose money, and customer would also not like to lose money. So both of them would be interested in having correct, that the transaction should be scheduled correctly. So now there is a question. What shall be outcome in the following instance? W, the statements are, okay, let me. So the question for the class is, okay, what happens if the statements are executed in this particular order? The first question is, let's say the statement W1 gets scheduled, and then there is a context switch, then D1 gets scheduled, D2 gets scheduled, and then there is again a context switch, then W2 gets scheduled. So let me know the answer for the case 1. Please continue. Tavish, Vijay, what will be the answer in this particular case? W1 gets executed, balance is initially 1000, and withdrawal amount is 200, and deposit amount is 300. Tavish, Vijay, what will be the answer in this particular case? Would it be 800, 1100, or 1300? Tavish. Tavish, Vijay, are you absent? Should I mark you as absent? Vaibhav Agarwal? What will be the answer? Karan Maurya. So please calculate the answer for all the 6 cases. Why should answer be 800, Vaibhav?
Ma'am, withdrawal amount was 200, yes?
Yes.
So, ma'am, deposit when the amount 300 amount will be deposited, then it will not be updated, and the balance read by the withdrawal action is 1000 only. So, 200 will be subtracted, and when the balance will be updated by W3 process, it will get recorded as 800 only.
So in this particular case, all you have to see is which particular process is updating in the last. So D3 is the update balance for deposit, and W3 is the update balance for withdrawal. So all you need to check is that which process is going to execute in the last. So
Yes.
if yes, so the only thing when the correct answer would be obtained would be when either D1, D2, D3 gets scheduled before W1, or W3 gets scheduled before D1. Only in that particular case, the correct answer will be obtained. Otherwise, in all other cases, the answer would be incorrect. And the last, the process updating or writing to the balance last would be giving you the answer. So if withdrawal process is updating in the last, and then the answer would be executed accordingly. Only thing that we need to remember is that if W1 gets executed after D3, then the balance that it is reading would be the updated balance, not the old balance. So old balance was 1000. So if D3 gets updated, so W1 will be reading 1300, in which we are going to get the correct answer. So anyhow, so you can calculate for the other scenarios also. I'll update it later on. Now the problem is, okay. So now what we want to ensure that, because this situation can occur quite frequently in operating system, so we want to ensure that shared resources should be accessed in mutual exclusive mode. So resources shared means many processes can access it, but mutually exclusive means at a given time, only one process should be allowed to access that resource. So the set of instructions that access a shared resource is known as critical section. Now you need to understand that critical section may not be, it is part of a code, and it is collection of the instructions that are accessing a shared resource. So a program can contain multiple critical sections. So for example, let's say one program is trying to write to a printer, which is shared across the different resources. At some place in this program, it is also trying to write to screen, which may also be shared across multiple processes, or it is trying to read from some input device, again shared across multiple. So so all these three regions of the code constitute a critical section, but they are critical section in respect of a different resource, a distinct resources. So for two processes, if they are trying to access a common shared variable, then both the processes will contain critical section corresponding to that resource. But it is quite possible that there might be three processes, process 1, process 2, process 3. And let's say process 1 and process 2 are sharing a variable A. So naturally, process 1 will have some instructions corresponding to updating this variable, and process 2 will also have some instructions corresponding to updating this variable A. So this will be the critical section of both the processes with respect to A. But it is quite possible that process 1 might be sharing another variable B. Process 1 might be sharing another variable B with respect to process C. So process 1 will have two critical sections, one respective to A and another respective to B. And process 2 will have only one critical section respective to, with respect to A. And process C will have only one critical section with respect to B. So there might be multiple critical sections, either in respect of the same variable or in respect of different variable within the processes, within a process. And they need not be contiguous. They might be spread over the code of the process. So now critical section problem means that you have to, so when one process is in its critical section, another process cannot be in its critical section. So what we said that there are three processes, let's say. They are what we are trying to say is, let's say there are three processes, P1, P2, and P3. P1 and P2 are sharing resource A, and P1 and P3 are sharing resource B. You can look at your chat. I've written something there. So now let's say P1 is trying to execute its critical section with respect to A. So right now P2 cannot be in its critical section, but P3 can be in its critical section because P3 is in critical section with respect to B, and right now P1 is not accessing B. So naturally, when we are talking about the critical section, we are talking about critical section with respect to a resource. So naturally, when one process is executing a critical section with respect to that resource, all other processes cannot be in their critical section if they are sharing the same resource. But if they are in a critical section with respect to another resource, of course, they can continue. That is the idea. So when we are talking about critical section, so we have to understand that we are talking about critical section with respect to the same resource. So naturally, when there are two processes, So critical section problem says that we have to find a solution in which only one of the process can be in its critical section. So all other processes need to wait. So any solution to the critical section problem should satisfy these 4 conditions. The first is mutual exclusion. At a time, only one process can be in its critical section. Then there should not be any strict alternation. So one of the solution that we can very easily devise is that first of all, let's give first chance to the process 1, so it can execute the critical section. Then we provide chance to the second process. It executes, then again give chance back to P1, then P2, then P1 and P2. The point is this is not going to be a satisfactory solution because quite possible P1 might not be executing, so P2 may have to wait infinitely. Or P2 might undergo some abnormal termination, so P1 may have to wait infinitely long. So this is not a good solution. And also P1 and P2 might be executing at different rates. One of the process may be very efficient in time. Another process might be executing a lot of things. So naturally, if we say P1 can execute only after P2, so P1 may be unnecessarily waiting, even though the resource might not be used, but it may have to unnecessarily waiting because it is not its turn. So now the idea is that if the resource is available, so and the process is available, so process can execute its critical section. But once it is executing its critical section, other process should not be allowed to access the same code which is corresponding to critical section. That's all we want. So strict alternation, though it is a solution, it is not a very good and elegant solution. It is a very inefficient solution. And if one of the process has not yet started running or has executed, has terminated abnormally or normally, the other process may have to wait, despite the fact that the resource is available. Third is whatever solution we suggest, it should not have deadlock. And there should not be any infinite postponement. Means there should always be some progress and none of the process should be made to wait infinitely for an infinite period of time. The first solution that we are going to devise is this one. So please look at the solution, do not look at the problems firsthand. So the solution is, if you're not able to see the screen, you can download the file from WhatsApp and then can see that on your terminal. So there are 2 processes. So naturally, before the processes can start executing, we have to initialize, and generally we have to initialize the variables that will help us synchronize the processes, so that that will help us implement our critical section correctly. So initially we are using a process number. So initially, let's say the process number equal to 1. So this solution is trying to, so depending upon the process number, the process will be allowed to execute. So naturally, if the process number is equal to 2, the first process is supposed to wait. And if the process number equal to 1, then process 2 is supposed to wait. So if process number equal to 1, the first process will enter the critical section. It will enter the critical section, execute the critical section, and then set the process number to 2, and then it will execute whatever is the code which is not critical section code. Similarly, process 2 will wait till process number becomes 2. And once the process number becomes 2, it will execute its critical section, then set the process number to 1 again. So process number is like a chance, and we are here finding a solution which is violating the second condition, that it is strict alternation. So the sequence of execution will always be P1, P2, P1, P2, P1, P2. So this is not a good solution, because what if one of the process does not run? And if the processes are not running at the same speed, then there might be a lot of busy waiting cycle, because every process will try to come and see whether the process number is equal to its chance or not. So naturally, it will waste many CPU cycles in waiting only. And so these are the problems. Let's look at the second solution. The second solution is using 2 Boolean variables, which is actually checking which of the processes inside its critical section. So as long as P2 is executing is inside its critical section, process 1 will be waiting. And once process 1 gets the chance, it will set process 1 inside equal to true, execute its critical section, and then process 1 inside equal to false after coming out of the critical section. Similarly, process 2 will do the same thing. As long as process 1 is inside, it will enter the critical section, and then before entering the critical section, it will set process 2 inside equal to true, enter the critical section, and process 2 inside will be. Now the solution looks very good. So basically process 1 inside and process 2 inside are like two locks. So before a process enters its critical section, it will put up its respective lock, and then execute the critical section and then open the lock again. So this is a very simple solution. But the problem is that what looks like a single statement at high level language is not actually an atomic or single statement at machine level language. So what we mean by an atomic statement is a statement which cannot be interrupted in between. So once the statement starts execution, the execution will be completed. So if you look at an assignment statement will actually consist of 3 statements at assembly language. So if you have got, let's say, read, let's say we say A equal to B. So actually, this will be translated to load A from memory. Okay. And or rather, if we don't even want to say load B from memory, that means copying the content of B to a register. And second statement will be store A, store register to location, memory location A. So basically, if you look at an assignment statement will at least consist of 2 assembly language statements. The first will be copying the content of right-hand side operand to register, and then the second statement will be copying the contents of this register back to memory, which is corresponding to the address of the left-hand side operator. So naturally, when we are saying same thing is true for the comparison. So when we are doing some comparison in the while loop, so you have to load the value into the register and check the value against. So you have to load the value of B and subtract the value of A and check whether that is equal to 0 or not, or maybe you can use for XOR of the 2 contents and so on. So you have to read both the operands into the memory and then XOR these 2, or you have to subtract these 2, and depending upon the flag value, you have to see whether they are equal or not. So what looks like a single statement at high level language may not be actually corresponding to single statement. And as far as CPU is concerned, CPU is executing machine instructions. And each assembly language statement is corresponding to one machine instruction. And one machine instruction is atomic. So naturally, when we are loading the memory we are loading a register from a memory, this will be a single statement, an atomic statement. When we are storing from a register to memory, again, this will be an atomic statement. But these 2 statements, a context switch can take place in between. So while, let's say, P1, initially P1 inside equal to false, P2 inside equal to false. So let's say P1 begins to, P1 gets the chance, and then it tries to set P1 inside equal to true. But right now the value of P1 inside is equal to false. So right now the common area where P1 and P inside and P2 inside, the value is false. So process 1 starts, checks that process 2 inside equal to false. So it begins to execute this statement, which is P1 inside equal to true. So basically, this is an assignment statement. So will consist of at least 2 assembly machine instructions. So after the first instruction, the context switch takes place. So the value of the false has been loaded into P1 inside, loaded to the register. But before it could write true, the context switch takes place and process 2 starts. So process 2 will check what is the value of P1 inside. It will also find that P1 inside is still false because P1 inside has not been updated to true. So it will also try to enter its critical section. And now both the processes will be executing P1 inside equal to true, P2 inside equal to true, and they will enter their critical section. So this particular solution does not guarantee mutual exclusion. So this is an incorrect solution. Any questions? Any questions? So you need to be aware that a high level statement, that a high level language statement may consist of multiple machine instructions. And at machine and context switch can take place after any instruction. So this is one thing that we need to remember. So that's why the solution may not be correct. But the problem in this particular case is that in most of the cases, the algorithm will execution would not show any race condition, and one fine day the race condition will be shown, because depending upon how the context switch was actually taking place. So checking whether a solution is free of race conditions is actually very difficult. So you may not be able to visualize all possible cases and say, yeah, in this particular case, it may undergo a deadlock, or it may it may violate mutual exclusion. So now let's come to solution number 3. If there are any questions, you may raise these questions. Any questions, Nikhil? Any questions, Nikhil? Are you people even listening, or you are just okay? Sujit, Vinush. Okay, so let's come to the solution number 3. Now, in the solution number 3, the process indicates its intention to use critical section. So again, we are using two Boolean variables. P1 wants to enter, P2 wants to enter. So, if a process 1 wants to use critical section, it will set its intention to true. But then it will also check the intention of the other process. If the other process does not want to enter, it will continue to the critical section and then again set its intent to false. This is how the solution will work. The problem in this particular case is that it is quite possible that process 1 sets P1 wants to true, and then the critical section occurs at this place. And now process 2 gets the chance, and process 2 said, I also want to enter. Now, when both of them try to execute their respective while loop, they will be in infinite loop, and deadlock has occurred. So both the processes are now waiting for other to set its intent to false, but unfortunately that will not happen because the way we are writing the code. So now both the processes are deadlocked. Now let's come to the process. Now 4. So now we are going to improve the code for process, this code, the last code. And whenever a process 1 finds that process 2 also wants to enter, it will try to back off so as to break the deadlock, so that the deadlock does not set in. So what happens is that whenever process 1 wants to enter, it will try to see whether process 2 wants to enter or not. If process 2 also wants to enter, so naturally both the flags have been set to true. So process 1 will momentarily, for some time, it will keep its flag equal to false, so that process 2 gets a chance to enter and deadlock does not happen. Process 2 will also do the same thing. And because this is a random wait, it is quite possible that the random number, the probability that both the processes will be generating the same random number over a long period is very, very low. So it is quite possible that at some point, one of the processes will be able to execute. Now, first of all, that both the process, the context which happens at in this manner, that process 1 starts, executes, process 1 wants to enter equal to true, and then context which happens. And then process 2 gets a chance. A probability of this happening is also very low, but even if it happens, to avoid the deadlock, we are using random wait. Now, if you are from computer networking, you must be remembering Aloha protocol. In Aloha protocol also, independent computer nodes will try to access the channel. And if they detect the collision, then they will wait for some time and then again do it. So here also they wait for they back off for some random time. So the idea is that at one time, only one of the nodes will be able to successfully use the medium. So the same situation is here. If process 1 and process 2 both wants to share the same variable, then both of them will show their intent, and any process before trying to access the variable will check whether other process has the same intent or not. If yes, then it will try to back off for some random time and allow the other process to continue. Now, the problem in this particular case is there is no deadlock, but it can lead to infinite postponement. So it is quite possible that process 1 tries to give chance to process 2, but before it gets its chance again, process 2 has again entered the critical section. So process 1 may be infinitely postponed. Now we are going to use these solutions as a guide to arrive at our correct solution, which is Dekker's algorithm. So Dekker's algorithm introduces another variable, shared variable, which is called favored process. Now, favored process will be used to provide the turns during if the deadlock setting is achieved. Okay. So what happens? P1 wants to enter, and then it will check whether P2 wants to enter or not. If P1 wants to enter and P2 wants to enter is true at the same time, it means both the processes might be deadlocked. To avoid that deadlock, we look at whose turn is this. If naturally both the processes are willing to run and they are executing, so now we use strict alternation to avoid deadlock. So if right now this is the turn of the process 2, so process 2 will continue to its critical section and then set P2 wants to enter equal to false. But at the same time, it will also set favored process equal to 1. So that if in the next deadlock situation, process 1 will get the chance. So 2, it is quite possible that if there is no deadlock, then process 2 may continue. So it is quite possible that when we are scheduling the processes, process 2, process 2, process 2, process 1, process 1, process 2, process 1, process 1, and then let's say the deadlock situation and process 2 gets the chance. But next time when the deadlock situation comes, process 1 will get the chance. So strict alternation is applied only when the deadlock situation applies. Otherwise, the process will continue as in any random depending upon. So we are at page number 4, and this is the deadlock algorithm, which is the correct solution. Any questions till now? I'm quite sure you might have done it earlier also, but I'm going through it again for the sake of completeness. So if there are any questions, please let me know. A simpler version of Dekker's algorithm is Peterson's algorithm. So Peter's algorithm, so what it does is it actually checks in its while loop, in its while loop, it will check two things. In its while loop, it will check two things. P1 wants to enter and favored process. So as long as P2 wants to enter and the favored process is 2, it will wait. So what is it doing? Let's look at this carefully. P1 is going to set two conditions. One condition in its favor, that is P1 wants to enter equal to true, and the second condition is in the favor of the second process. So naturally, if the second process has not started, then this P2 wants to enter may be false, and process 1 will continue. But let's say process 2 also wants to enter, and the context which takes place at P2 wants to enter. So naturally, if so naturally, because process 1 is at its while loop and P2 wants to enter is equal to true, so this is supposed to wait. But when process 2 comes, it will set favored process equal to 1. So one of the condition will be broken for process 1, and it will continue. So naturally, if the deadlock situation comes, depending upon which process executed last before entering its while loop, the other process will get chance. So if process 2 was the last to come, so process 1 starts, process 1 wants to enter equal to true, favored process equal to 2, but before it executes while loop, process 2 has started. But when the process 2 starts, that's the context which happens at P2 wants to enter. At this point, process 1 is forced to wait. But if context which happens after favored process equal to 1, then process 1, in the while condition of the process 1, the second process, the second condition becomes false, and it will continue to its critical section. Whereas when P2 gets the chance, because process 1 is in its critical section, P1 wants to enter is equal to true, and favored process has been set to 1 by process 2 itself. So process 2 is supposed to wait. So it is like one condition is in its favor, another condition is not in its favor, and another condition will be in its favor only when the second process executes the critical section, or it has not. So it has not yet entered the critical section, it is not willing to enter the critical section, or it has exited the critical section. Only then the process will get to execute. Any questions? Okay, so your home assignment is, then we have got this Lampert-Bakery's algorithm. I want you to explain this algorithm and say why this will not create a critical deadlock, or it will follow all the, it will not violate any of the conditions that we said is required for critical solution of critical section problem. So there were 4 conditions. So you have to tell me why this code should be working correctly. So this is the assignment for today. And now I'll be going to classroom and take your attendance. So let's go to the classroom for attendance. Okay, so I've asked you a question. Please continue with that.